Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for September 27th through October 3rd. This week I read 2 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. Before we go any further, last week I plain just forgot to talk about a book. I said I read 4 books, only talked about 3 of them because I just messed up looking at my list. The book that I missed last week is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is written in verse and it is 2 different perspectives of these different girls who share the same father but didn't know that until after he dies in a plane crash. This book is obviously about grief because they are both missing their father, but it's also about familial connections and what their 2 different lives look like because one of them lives in America and one of them lives in the Dominican Republic. There are trigger warnings for sexual assault, so be aware of that going into it. This reads very quickly because, like I said, it is poetry, so it goes by super fast. And I really like that I could differentiate between the different perspectives based on how many lines were in a stanza. One of the characters was also in an established queer relationship and it was just such casual representation that there was no strife in that, and I just really loved it. On to what I actually read this week, the first one being Pulp by Robin Talley. This is 2 different timelines. One is in 2017 and one is in 1955. First protagonist is 17 years old and going into her senior year of high school and has to do a creative writing project, and just before she goes to the meeting where she's supposed to talk about this project that she's already completely laid out but absolutely hasn't, she finds out about lesbian pulp, so she ends up thinking that she wants to research and write a lesbian pulp. Our character in 1955 is 18, has recently graduated high school and is about to go on to post-secondary school and find some lesbian pulp at the bus station and decides to steal it, take it home, read it. What happens is both of these characters end up reading lesbian pulp, so we get that bibliophilic element, and then they're both also writing their own lesbian pulp. So this is a very bibliophilic, very queer book with parallels between what it was like to be queer in the 1950s versus now. I absolutely loved this book. I gushed about it in my September wrap-up, so if you haven't watched that yet, I will link it down below. But if you're looking for a book that actually uses the word lesbian on the page more than once, and also bisexual, that was in there as well as something that is just bibliophilic as hell, this is the book to pick up. The other book I finished this week was Save the Cat by Blake Schneider. This is a book about screenwriting, but basically you can apply the same beats to any storytelling. For example, I originally got it because my friends have an improv troupe and they do long-form improv, and as long as you know the beats of what's supposed to happen in a story, you can concoct an entire story off the top of your head on stage live, and it's really fascinating to see. So I've had this for years. I finally actually got around to reading it because I will be doing NaNoWriMo this year and I'm writing with a friend, so I can't just pants it. We need to have at least some form of outline before we go into it. On to what I watched this week. We watched a few more episodes of Electric Dreams, which is a show that's based on Philip K. Dick short stories, and each episode is self-contained, so every episode is a different short story. I'm really enjoying this because it seems like all of these are kind of set in the same world, or similar worlds anyway. Definitely not all of them are in the same world. And it's always interesting to try to figure out what the twist in this particular episode is going to be. Not to mention sometimes you just see random famous people that you know from other things, like Bryan Cranston, who is one of the executive producers, or Robb Stark, what's his name, Richard Madden, was in an episode as well. This week we also watched the 4th and final season of The Good Place because it finally came to Canadian Netflix, and that is a really good way to end that show. That's really all I can say because I'm not going to get into specifics, but I thought it was excellent. Another show we watched that has similar actors is Parks and Rec. We're in the 6th season, we're getting to the end of it, there's only one more season left. This is like the 3rd or 4th time I've watched it. It's just comforting. The other show I watched some episodes of is New Girl. I was just kind of popping in while my roommate was watching it, and then also we specifically watched some episodes after one of the movies that I'm going to talk about. Yeah, because we needed something light and happy before we went to bed and thought that we were going to die because we watched horror movies. The first horror movie I watched this week I watched by myself, and that's called Under the Shadow. It's an Iranian horror movie, so it had subtitles as well as dubs, and I like to leave both of them on and see how different the dubs and the subs are. It's always very weird and strange, but I want to make sure I'm getting as much of what they're actually saying as possible, so I leave both on. This is about a woman in Iran in the 80s, and she was studying medicine, but she's not allowed to go to university anymore because it seems like she was part of a group that the government doesn't appreciate. And there's a war going on, so her husband, who is a doctor, is called to kind of the front lines, and she is left with their daughter in their apartment, and she doesn't want to leave. And then spooky things start happening in the apartment. I picked this up because I was going through the list of horror movies that are in I Am Not Your Final Girl by Claire C. Holland, which is a group of poems about not being Final Girls, and I wanted to see how many of these movies I could watch and then read the corresponding poem, because my theory was the poems would make more sense to me if I knew the source material, and that theory was true. Unfortunately, this movie was about halfway through that list of poems and was the first one that Netflix had. Not unfortunately, this was very, very good. This actually got me to jump and my heart rate spiked at one point, and that doesn't happen very often for me, so that was good. The other horror movie I watched this week was a rewatch for me, but not for my roommate, and that was The Babadook. Very, very similar premise. Single mom, basically, because husband has died in this one, whereas in the other one the husband was just away. And a small child to deal with, and then creepy things start happening. We thought we were just going to be able to watch the movie and then go to bed, and no, we had to watch the movie and then watch at least 3 episodes of New Girl before we knew we could just pass out and maybe not have Babadook-related dreams. Onto the books I listened to this week, the first one being This Is My America by Kim Johnson. This is about a girl who is in high school and her father has been in prison for 7 years based on a crime that he did not commit. He is actually on death row, and she has been writing letters weekly to a project that helps people on death row get a second trial. But unfortunately time is ticking and he has less than a year to his execution date, and she hasn't been able to get any help. They are not wealthy, so they cannot afford to just hire legal counsel, and he shouldn't be in jail in the first place because he was home at the time of the crime but was completely unbelieved, which unfortunately is a story I have heard more than once when it comes to a black defendant. As we're getting to know this character, her brother is accused of a crime that he does not commit, so he goes on the lam and it all goes from there. This was striking and powerful and suspenseful, and I really enjoyed it. The other book I listened to this week was called Roomies by Sarah Zarr and Tara Altebrando. This is a dual perspective novel written by 2 different authors, and because that's what I'm going to try to write, or at least half of, in November, I wanted to read this type of book. This is about 2 different girls, Elizabeth and Lauren, and they are going to be college roommates, but they haven't gotten to college yet. They're just starting up an email correspondence over the summer, and it's about their lives, their love lives, all of the things that you can kind of talk to somebody about that you don't really know yet, and then you feel really vulnerable because what if you don't actually get along with that person? Overall, I enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to finding more books with dual perspectives, especially that are written by 2 different authors. So if you have any recommendations, let me know down in the comments below. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I recently set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you want to send me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!